I've always been a family guy. I'm Logan, 42, a husband, father, and a man who loves the simple joys of life. Cooking, baking, sketching a bit here and there, and losing myself in music are my little escapes from the daily grind. My wife Vanessa and I have been married for 20 years. We have an 18-year-old daughter, Grace, who's my pride and joy. Vanessa, though, well, let's just say she's not shy about sharing her opinions, especially about me. Logan, do you seriously think that car is going to last another winter? It screams midlife crisis, not dependable father. She never misses an opportunity to jab at my old Honda Civic. Sure, it's not flashy, but it runs fine, and I've got other things to spend money on, like saving for Grace's college. And it's not just the car. My cooking? Too much butter, Logan. You're going to give us all heart attacks. My music? You really think playing an acoustic guitar makes you edgy? You're not 25 anymore. Even my hobby of sketching landscapes gets a dismissive. Are you trying to be the next Bob Ross? Stick to baking cookies. But hey, I've got Grace. She's my safe harbor in this storm of critique. She's smart, kind, and always up for a laugh. Just last week we baked a cake together. Well, I baked and she managed to get more flour on herself than in the bowl. Dad, you could open a bakery, she said, licking frosting off a spatula. Yeah. And hire you as my chief taste tester? Absolutely. But I charge in cupcakes. That's the kind of connection we have. No judgment, just love. Vanessa, on the other hand, seems to enjoy pointing out every perceived flaw, especially when her friends are around. Like the time we hosted a little get-together, and she decided to roast me in front of everyone. Logan tried to fix the sink last week. Long story short, we ended up calling a plumber anyway. DIY is not his strong suit, she said laughing. Her friends joined in and I just smiled, biting my tongue. It's been like this for years. I used to think it was just her way of joking, but lately it feels less playful and more mean-spirited. At night, I'd often lie awake, wondering if I'd somehow failed her. Was I not enough? Did she see me as less of a man because I wasn't the flashy macho type? Little did I know, these were just the first cracks in a marriage that was about to shatter. But there's only so much criticism a man can take before he starts questioning everything. And let me tell you, the questions were piling up fast. What was happening to my marriage? And more importantly, was it even worth saving? Things went from bad to worse pretty quickly. Vanessa's criticism, once an occasional jab, had turned into a daily sport. No matter what I did or didn't do, it was never good enough. One Friday evening, we were invited to a small dinner party at her friend Sheila's house. I'd barely taken off my jacket before Vanessa started her usual act. Logan thought it would be a good idea to bring a bottle of wine from the grocery store. Nothing fancy, of course, she said, holding it up like it was a bottle of vinegar. The room filled with polite chuckles. I forced a smile. Well, Vanessa always says I'm predictable, I quipped, trying to lighten the mood. It didn't work. Predictable is one word for it, she shot back, and everyone laughed a little too hard. Later that night, as we were driving home, I couldn't keep it in anymore. Do you even realize how often you put me down? I asked, my voice calm but firm. She sighed dramatically. Oh, Logan, don't be so sensitive. It's all in good fun. Good fun for who? Because it sure doesn't feel that way on my end. She didn't answer, just stared out the window. Typical. The following week, things escalated. I'd gone to the hardware store to pick up a few things and ended up in a minor altercation in the parking lot. Some guy was being a jerk about a parking space, and instead of escalating, I just shrugged it off and walked away. When I told Vanessa about it later, she rolled her eyes. Of course you walked away. Why am I not surprised? You could have at least stood up for yourself. What was I supposed to do? Get into a fistfight over a parking spot. Sometimes, Logan, being a man means not backing down, she said, her tone dripping with disdain. I was floored. I thought being a man meant keeping a level head and avoiding unnecessary conflict, but apparently, I was wrong. It wasn't just the little things, either. I could feel her pulling away emotionally. She'd spend hours scrolling on her phone, giggling at texts she wouldn't show me. She'd go out with her friends more and more, coming home late without an explanation. One night, She came home around midnight, the smell of perfume and wine lingering in the air. "Big night?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "It was fine," she said curtly, heading straight to the bedroom. I followed her. "Vanessa, what's going on? You've been distant lately." "Oh, don't start, Logan. Not everything is about you." That was the end of the conversation. She slammed the bathroom door, leaving me standing there, feeling more like a roommate than a husband. I started to wonder if there was someone else. The thought made my stomach churn, but the signs were hard to ignore, and if I was right, what would I do about it? The idea of divorce had always seemed distant, something that happened to other people, not us. But lately, I found myself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, and wondering if there was any saving this marriage. It wasn't just the criticism or the distance. It was the sheer lack of respect. The way Vanessa looked at me, like I was a burden instead of a partner. The way she dismissed my feelings like they didn't matter. It was exhausting. One morning, as I sipped my coffee and flipped through emails, I noticed an ad for a local law firm. "Protect your rights in divorce," it read. Felt like a sign. I clicked the link and spent the next hour reading about divorce laws, asset division, and custody arrangements. Not that Grace at 18 would need custody, but still, it was overwhelming. That same afternoon, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. His name was Mike, and he looked exactly how you'd expect a divorce lawyer to look. Sharp suit, slicked back hair, and an aura of quiet confidence. "So, Logan, what's going on?" Mike asked as I sat down in his office. I hesitated for a moment before laying it all out. The criticism, the emotional distance, the late nights, the gut feeling that something wasn't right. Mike listened carefully, jotting down notes. "Sounds like you've been unhappy for a while," he said finally. I nodded. "I don't know if I'm ready to pull the trigger, though. Divorce feels final." "It is," he agreed. "But so is staying in a marriage that's destroying you. The question is, what do you want for yourself? For your future?" That hit me hard. I'd spent so long trying to make Vanessa happy, trying to keep the peace, that I hadn't stopped to think about what I wanted. Over the next few weeks, I started quietly preparing. I gathered financial documents, checked our bank accounts, and even made a list of assets. I didn't tell Vanessa any of this. As far as she knew, everything was business as usual. But inside, I was crumbling. One minute, I'd feel relief at the thought of finally ending this toxic cycle. The next, I'd be consumed by guilt. What if I was making a mistake? What if I was throwing away 20 years of marriage over things that could be fixed? One night, as I was tucking Grace into bed, yes, even at 18, she still liked our little bedtime chats. She looked at me with concern. "Dad, are you okay? You've been really quiet lately." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, kiddo. Just a lot on my mind." She tilted her head. "Is it Mom?" I froze. "Why do you ask?" Grace shrugged. "You guys don't seem happy. I mean, I don't want to pry, but it's kinda obvious." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. Even my daughter could see it. That night, as I lay in bed, I made up my mind. This wasn't just about me or Vanessa. It was about Grace, too. She deserved to see what a healthy relationship looked like, and staying in this mess wasn't setting the right example. The next step was clear, but I had no idea just how messy things were about to get. The cracks in our marriage had turned into chasms, but I still wasn't ready for what came next. If I thought things were bad before, I was about to learn what rock bottom looked like. It all started on a Saturday morning. I was at my usual coffee shop, scrolling through emails, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my friend Ethan. "Ethan, hey man, I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but I think you need to see this." Attached were 2 photos. In the first, Vanessa was sitting in a booth at some cafe with a man I didn't recognize. In the second, they were leaning across the table, locked in a kiss that was way more than friendly. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever before typing back. "Me. Who's the guy?" "Ethan. No idea. I saw them yesterday at the bistro downtown. Didn't want to jump to conclusions, but yeah." I thanked Ethan, though it felt hollow. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. For a second, I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe he was an old friend, a relative, anyone but what my gut told me he was. But deep down, I knew. When Vanessa got home later that afternoon, I tried to act normal, though every fiber of my being wanted to confront her right then and there. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked, my voice betraying nothing. "Fine," she replied, barely glancing up from her phone. "Ran some errands, met up with Jessica for lunch." "Jessica, huh?" I said casually. "Where'd you guys go?" "The bistro," she said without hesitation. I felt a sharp pang of anger. She didn't even bother to lie. That evening I took a long walk to clear my head. When I got back, Vanessa was already asleep, or at least pretending to be. I sat in the living room, staring at the photos Ethan had sent me. Over and over, the same questions ran through my mind. How long has this been going on? How could she do this to me? To us? I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had made a decision. Monday, I called my attorney, Mike, and told him everything. "She's cheating," I said bluntly. "I have photos. I want to move forward with the divorce, but I need to include this in the case." Mike didn't seem surprised. "Do you have more evidence?" "Photos are good, but we'll need more if this goes to court." "More?" The thought of digging deeper made me sick, but I knew he was right. If I was going to do this, I had to do it right. Before you find out what happens next, please subscribe to the channel. That evening when Vanessa was out running errands, I searched the house for anything that might confirm what I already knew. It didn't take long. Hidden in her nightstand was a second phone, one I'd never seen before. Heart-pounding, I unlocked it. The passcode was easy to guess. Our anniversary date, of all things. The messages hit me like a freight train. "Marcus, last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. Vanessa, me too. Logan's clueless as always. Same time Thursday?" I stopped reading after that. It was all there in black and white. The lies, the betrayal, the complete lack of respect. As I sat there holding the phone in my hands, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just a failing marriage anymore. This was betrayal on a level I couldn't forgive. And if Vanessa thought I was going to let this slide, she had no idea who she was dealing with. I couldn't keep it in any longer. Vanessa had to know that her lies were out in the open, and I wasn't about to sit quietly while she tore apart everything I had worked so hard to build. It was Tuesday evening, and Grace was out with her friends. Vanessa walked in, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, carrying shopping bags like nothing was wrong. The sight of her so calm and composed made my blood boil. "Hey," she said casually, not even looking at me. "Dinner ready yet?" "Nope," I said, leaning back on the couch with her second phone in my hand. But I did find something else to digest. Her eyes flicked to the phone, and for the first time in a long time, she looked nervous. "What's that?" she asked, her voice tight. "Oh, you don't recognize it? That's strange. It's full of texts between you and a guy named Marcus. You know, the one you've been sneaking around with while I've been clueless as always." Her face drained of color, but she quickly tried to recover. "Logan, that's not—" "Don't," I snapped, cutting her off. "Don't insult me by lying again. I've got photos, texts, everything I need to prove what you've been doing." She opened her mouth to respond but seemed to think better of it. Instead, she crossed her arms, face hardening into defiance. "So what? Maybe if you were a little more manly, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere." Her words hit like a slap, but instead of crumbling, I felt a strange sense of calm. "Manly?" I repeated, standing up. "Vanessa, being a man isn't about picking fights or showing off. It's about being steady, reliable, and putting your family first. But you wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, spare me the lecture, Logan. You're boring. Marcus makes me feel alive, like I'm actually with someone who has a backbone." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Alive? Sure. Let's see how alive he makes you feel when he realizes I'm done footing the bill for this circus. Because here's what's going to happen." I pulled a folder from the coffee table and tossed it onto the couch. "Those are divorce papers. You'll likely get half, as is the law in our state, but not a cent more. And before you even think about dragging this out, I've got enough dirt on you to make sure no judge in their right mind sides with you." Her eyes widened. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm dead serious, I said, my voice steady. You wanted excitement? Congratulations, you got it. But don't come crying to me when your little fling doesn't pan out. Vanessa tried to play the victim. Logan, wait. I didn't mean maybe we can fix this. We've been through so much. Don't, I said firmly. You don't get to play the poor me card now. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. She stood there, stunned, as I picked up my car keys and headed for the door. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Dad, can we talk when I get home? It read. I had no idea what she wanted to say, but something told me the fallout from this wasn't over yet. I wanted to spend time away from home, but that night I had to come home to talk to my daughter. Luckily, Vanessa was gone too, probably off to her Marcus house to cry or be happy. When I got home, Grace was waiting for me in the living room. Her expression was a mix of concern and confusion, and I braced myself for what was coming. Dad, she started softly. What's going on with you and Mom? I sighed and sat down across from her. Grace, I don't want to sugarcoat this. Your mom and I were getting a divorce. Her eyes widened, but she didn't look entirely surprised. Why? I hesitated for a moment, debating how much to tell her. Grace was 18, old enough to handle the truth, but still my daughter, someone I wanted to protect. Let's just say there are things I can't overlook anymore. Your mom hasn't been honest with me, and it's not something we can fix. Grace sat back, processing my words. Is it because of Marcus? She asked quietly. My heart skipped a beat. What do you know about Marcus? I heard Mom talking to Aunt Sheila about him last month. She said he makes her feel special. Grace's voice cracked on the last word, and I could see the hurt in her eyes. I didn't want to believe it, Dad. I didn't know what to do. I leaned forward, taking her hand in mine. Grace, listen to me. None of this is your fault, okay? Your mom made her choices, and now we're dealing with the consequences. But no matter what happens between us, I'm always here for you. She nodded, tears welling up. I can't believe she'd do this to us. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I walked into that courtroom with my head held high. I wasn't here to play games. I just wanted what was fair. Vanessa, however, had other plans. She sat across from me with her high-powered attorney, looking every bit the picture of confidence. Her lawyer wasted no time painting her as the victim. Your Honor, he began smoothly, Ms. Vanessa has sacrificed so much for this marriage. She deserves the house, spousal support, and a larger share of their finances to maintain the lifestyle she's accustomed to. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Vanessa, the same person who had criticized me for years and treated me like an afterthought, was now claiming she was the one who had sacrificed. Her lawyer continued, Vanessa has spent considerable time and effort caring for her appearance, which she believed was an essential part of maintaining her role as a wife and partner. Meanwhile, Logan remained emotionally detached, providing little support or affection. That was it. I couldn't stay silent. I leaned over to Mike, my attorney, who nodded, signaling that it was my turn. Your Honor, Mike began standing up. Let's address this sacrifice Vanessa claims to have made. Yes, she spent time and effort on her appearance, but not for the benefit of her husband or their family. She used marital funds to present herself in a way that, frankly, didn't include her husband. In fact, while Vanessa was focused on impressing someone else, my client has received nothing but criticism and emotional abuse over the years. Vanessa shot me a glare, but stayed quiet. Mike continued, Logan has spent years trying to be a supportive partner. He took on the financial burdens of this marriage, only to be met with derision at every turn. Yet now, Vanessa is demanding the house, spousal support, and the lion's share of their savings. Your Honor, that is not fairness. It's exploitation. Vanessa's attorney, of course, had a rebuttal. Logan is mischaracterizing the relationship. Vanessa's expenditures were entirely appropriate for a woman fulfilling her duties as a wife. Mike didn't miss a beat. Your Honor, those appropriate expenditures included designer clothes, spa treatments, and luxury cosmetics, all while Logan drove a used car and worked tirelessly to provide for their family. Vanessa wasn't using those resources to maintain a household. She was using them to maintain a fantasy, one that excluded her husband entirely. The judge leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "Ms. Vanessa, do you have anything to say in response?" Vanessa stood up, her face flushed with anger. "Yes, I do, Your Honor. I had to do all those things because Logan wasn't enough for me. He's boring, predictable, and weak. I wanted to feel alive, to feel valued. Is that so wrong?" Her words echoed through the courtroom, and for a moment there was complete silence. Then Grace, who had been sitting quietly in the back, stood up. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can't stay quiet anymore. My dad isn't weak. He's the most caring, dependable person I know. And while my mom was spending money on herself, all she gave him in return was disrespect. He deserves better than this." The room fell silent again, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride for Grace. In the end, the judge ruled that the house would be sold, with the proceeds split evenly. Vanessa was awarded half of our savings, as expected, but no spousal support. The judge stated that her demands for a larger share were unreasonable and unsupported. As we walked out of the courtroom, Vanessa turned to me, her face a mix of anger and disbelief. "You're going to regret this, Logan. You'll see." I met her gaze and said calmly, "The only thing I regret is letting you treat me like a doormat for so long." The legal battle was over, but the emotional fallout was far from finished. Vanessa had lost more than just the court case. She had lost the respect of her family. And as much as I wanted to move on, I knew there were still pieces of my life to rebuild. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. It was over. Years of criticism, emotional distance, and betrayal finally behind me. But the silence that followed was deafening. The house, now half empty and stripped of its warmth, felt more like a reminder of what I'd lost than what I'd gained. Grace, as always, was my anchor. She stayed with me for a while, helping pack up old memories and reminding me that not everything had been bad. "Dad," she said one evening as we sorted through boxes, "I know this is hard, but honestly, I think this is the best thing for you." I nodded, grateful for her support. "It's hard to see it now, kiddo, but I think you're right." I was adjusting to my new life. I sold the house, as per the court order, and moved into a modest small house. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I started taking cooking more seriously. Turns out I'm pretty good at it. Grace even convinced me to start an Instagram account for my recipes. Chef Logan wasn't exactly going viral, but it gave me something to focus on besides the past. Vanessa, on the other hand, wasn't adjusting so well. Word got around that her relationship with Marcus had fizzled out quickly. It turned out that her idea of strong and exciting didn't translate well into real life. Marcus was controlling, argumentative, and had little patience for her demands. From what I heard, their fights were legendary. I won't say for sure, but there were rumors that Marcus may have used physical force on Vanessa. One day, Grace came to my new home with an update I didn't expect. "Dad, I support you and I didn't want to hang out with Mom, but I'm going to college soon anyway, so I figured Vanessa's still my mom and I should keep in touch with her a little bit. Mom called me today," she said, setting her bag down. "She wanted to know if I thought you'd ever take her back." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" "Yeah," she said, rolling her eyes. "Apparently Marcus dumped her. She's miserable. She said she misses the stability you gave her." I laughed, a short, bitter laugh. The stability she spent years tearing down? That stability? Grace shrugged. "People don't always appreciate what they have until it's gone." I continued to get my life together, but then something happened. Vanessa tried to reach out a few times, but I kept my distance. One evening, she showed up at my house unannounced. She looked different, not in a good way. Her confident, polished exterior had given way to someone who looked tired and defeated. "Logan," she started. "Can we talk? Can we?" I stood in the doorway, blocking her from coming in. "What is there to talk about, Vanessa?" She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I made a mistake. I thought I wanted excitement, but all I did was destroy the one good thing I had. I miss us." I repeated, my voice tinged with sarcasm. Vanessa, there hasn't been an us for a long time. You made sure of that. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel the sympathy I might have felt before. I know I can't undo what I did, she said, but maybe we could start over. I shook my head. Vanessa, starting over would mean erasing years of disrespect and betrayal. I've moved on. You should too. She stared at me for a long moment before nodding. I guess I deserve that. You do, I said quietly. Goodbye, Vanessa. I closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a long breath. It felt like closing a chapter, not just of the night, but of my life. Months passed, and life started to feel normal again. Grace went off to college, and we talked almost every day. My cooking hobby grew into something bigger, and I even began teaching a local class once a week. Looking back, I realized that Vanessa's betrayal, as painful as it was, had given me something I never thought I'd have. Freedom. Freedom to live on my own terms, to rediscover myself, and to build a future that wasn't weighed down by constant criticism and doubt. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Respect is the foundation of any relationship. Without it, everything else crumbles. And as hard as it was to walk away, I know now that I made the right choice. For the first time in years, I'm at peace. And let me tell you, it feels damn good. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.